I am going to beat you into the living death.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with the latest edition of the Living Death Show. The panel looks a little different today. Jay is on vacation, so I'll be handling a stat of the week, and there will not be a man with the stats, facts, figures, and the numbers to anchor it, but it's all good because we got a great show coming for you anyway. First up is the jack of all trades who has mastered them all, the senior editor of ShirtOff.com, and the big homie, Ben Duffy. Ben, how you feeling today?
I'm doing real well, man. It's going to be an interesting show without Jay. We will be unmoored from the necessity of like factual correctness, actual numbers. We'll make shit up on the fly. It will be amazing.
Yes, this is going to be like fan fiction MMA right here. This is what we're going for. And I'm very excited to introduce the person who's going to anchor the panel this week, who is our guest. And this guy, me and him have been back and forth trying to get on some podcast or do something official together for a very long time, and it's finally happened. We've had a lot of misfires. We were supposed to guest on each other's shows a million times, and always something would go wrong at the last minute. But here he is, finally, the boardroom staff writer, my man, a very, very prolific presence on MMA Twitter as well. Rory Robinson. Rory, what's going on, man? Good to see you.
Dang, I appreciate that. I don't think I've ever been introed like that before. Usually it's just like, oh, this guy. But yeah, happy to be here. Happy to talk about stuff. Probably like, 2 years in the making. So let's get it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. I mean, it's unfortunate that we have to start things off like this. We're still in the glow of UFC 281, a fantastic event that we will for sure talk about. That's going to be the bulk of our show today, of course. But as we're kind of basking in that glow, we got some unfortunate news that came across the timeline. Two-time UFC title challenger, most recently Bellator fighter, Anthony Rumble Johnson passed away. We're finding out it was non-Hodgkins lymphoma. We've seen, social media posts from him over the last year or so. Ali Abdelaziz, I think as recently as last month, said something to the media about his health being in jeopardy. First off, let's just, how are you going to remember Rumble Johnson? One of the more exciting fighters of the modern era. I'll start with you, Rory. What is the first thing you think about when you hear the name Rumble Johnson?
So it's a few things for me. First off, anytime we lose somebody in the fight community, it's already, it's already terrible news. But especially for African American people, I feel like he's a pillar when it comes to viewing the sport through our lens. And especially he was that type of guy that could get our community excited, because he was, very reminiscent of like power fighters from boxing. So it's like he was that guy for us at that time that could really cross over people that weren't really into the sport and get them excited, just like he would get any regular fan of MMA excited. Me personally, my biggest memory of him, though, is that fight against Bader on Fox, when Bader just shot for that takedown immediately because he did not want those hands. And Rumble just stuffed that thing and just pounded him out like it was nothing. So yeah, that's always the memory of Rumble that sticks out for me.
Yeah. Ben, any thoughts you'd like to share about Anthony Johnson?
I did not know him personally, like never even interacted with him in a professional context. So I have to speak about him like I would speak about any recently deceased public figure. And so I don't want to like step too far in one direction or the other. Like I don't want to like shovel dirt on a man as his like loved ones and those who knew him personally are mourning. Nor do I want to put someone who was definitely a flawed public figure on some kind of pedestal just because he's dead. If we can separate things, in the cage, he was probably the most terrifying fighter in the sport at any weight for a couple of years there. I love the backstage conversation that came up on some UFC embedded show where John Jones and Rashad Evans were just talking, casually with each other, and both acknowledged that Anthony Johnson was the guy that nobody wanted a piece of at the time. I thought that was like a nice revelation and kind of an interesting look behind the curtain. Despite his terrifying knockout power, despite his, outstanding defensive wrestling against people not named like Daniel Cormier, might have underachieved a little bit as a fighter, but still achieved a whole hell of a lot. Was still, one of the best light heavyweights of his era, or rumble weights, as he kind of moved up the scale. Outside the cage, people I know and respect, think he was a great guy. Having said that, he was credibly accused of doing some pretty terrible things. So he was a human being, like clearly. He was complex. He did some great things, might well have done some not great things. Peace to those who knew him, and we'll miss him. And certainly the sport will miss him.
Very well said, Ben. I feel somewhere in the middle of you two as far as Rumble is concerned. I did have a couple of personal interactions with him. I found him to be a pretty charming guy. He funny, very easy to talk to. In fact, my first credentialed event, he was a guest fighter for UFC 214, and I believe at the time he was on the sidelines, like he had retired. Quote unquote retire, MMA retirement, of course. And this was kind of when it was rumored that he might be coming back to the sport, and he's backstage, and I was like amazed at how huge this guy was, because I had seen him previously before. I was at his last fight that he made welterweight for, and that was against Charlie Brenneman in DC. The Johnson, DJ and Dominick Cruz fight was the main event of that one. And seeing him on the scale that day, I mean, he looked like a well-defined skeleton. It just, and just all the moisture in his body sucked out. He was super ashy. He just looked like death on that scale. And then the next day, he looked like an absolute giant standing next to Brenneman, who later on dropped to 155. So think about Rumble Johnson fought and defeated a UFC heavyweight champion in Andrei Arlovski, was fighting a guy who eventually would drop to 155. So just the size disparity, just, sort of this guy was just such a scary presence in that cage. But from my interactions with him, was a very personable, nice guy. I don't know what went on behind the scenes with him, the allegations that were thrown against him, and I don't want to speak on that too heavy. I think police reports do a fine enough job with that. But as far as what he was able to do in the cage, he was probably pound for pound the most vicious knockout artist that we've ever seen. A person who they legitimately could have touched your chin and put you out at any moment. Think back to Alexander Gustafsson, what he was able to do with him in such quick work. Think about Glover Teixeira, a future light heavyweight champion at the time, his tooth flying in the air off of a single uppercut. This dude was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. I think also too, beyond what he was able to accomplish, Ben, I think you put it very, very nicely there, that a solid sort of underachiever, because you think about the potential that he had, and it wasn't all his fault that he underachieved. This was legitimately a person who was a serious threat to John Jones, and John Jones knew it. Had it not been for his car accident that stripped him of the title, we might be looking at a world where Rumble Johnson held a belt. That's not that far out of the realm of possibility.
Oh, and I mean, he happened to occupy time and space with two of the 10 greatest fighters of all time.
Yeah, I mean, he was seconds away from capturing that title against Daniel Cormier twice. Mm-hmm. Just one legitimate shot, and put Cormier, who had like a seriously underrated chin, put him on skates pretty easily both times. And Rory, your assessment about his potential for the African-American fan base, spot on. My family, most of which my family is just kind of getting into mixed martial arts now. I come from a very, very serious boxing family. And Rumble Johnson was one of the few guys that they knew, one of the few guys that, okay, if he's fighting, you're sitting down and you're watching him. Imagine what that would have been like if he held a belt. The level of stardom and marketing exposure that could have got to him to get a community that really doesn't get that much dedicated marketing toward mixed martial arts.
Yeah, for me, I see parallels because just like UFC 281, you can really be as great as everybody wants you to be. You can perform well, but sometimes there's just a guy that has your number, and that can stop you from achieving whatever your next goal is. So yeah, it would have been great seeing him fight John, but DC was a guy in the way, and we'll never know. But as far as his legacy, I think you can't take away the impact that he's had when it comes to excitement, which is, again, at the end of the day, what a lot of people tune in for that aren't really aware of our sport. So I'll give him credit in that regard, yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's also interesting, too, this event, 281, that, Mike Tyson, who has been a prominent fixture at a lot of UFC events, he's honored, got the biggest pop in the arena, when his face flashed on that screen.
Yeah.
Rumble Johnson had the potential to be that for MMA, and from a personal standpoint, very parallel. Like I've had a interaction with Mike Tyson, found him to be very personable, funny guy, pretty charming, easy to talk to. Sort of the same things I felt talking to Rumble Johnson. Got the same sort of flawed past. Mm-hmm. The same sort of scary presence, just knowing that this man's fist could put you out at any given moment.
That man's secondhand smoke was about to put you out.
Oh yeah, I mean, it helped relax me for the day, that's for sure. Okay. Yeah, I think there is history is going to be kind remembering Rumble Johnson as a fighter, and it's just a shame, 38 years old, way too young to be saying goodbye to somebody. So rest in peace, Rumble Johnson, and our deepest condolences to all the people who are mourning right now. Someone who's a big part of their world. All right, well, let's go ahead and get into some UFC 281 talk. The stat of the day is 3. 3, because there were only 3 fights that made it to decision. This was an incredibly exciting and violent card. Just off the top of your head, very quickly, is this the best event we've had so far? Yeah, I know recency bias is probably going to flood in our minds. Rory, you were in the building, so I'm sure your perspective is going to be unique to what ours was watching it on TV. Was this the most exciting pay-per-view event for you this year?
For me, easily. And I'll take it a step further and say it's probably the best event I've ever been to, actually being in there. And I mean, I've been to a lot of events and I've covered a lot of events. This was hands down the most energy I've ever felt in an arena. There were some people that got some really big pops, some really great post-fight interviews, good action. The crowd was alive. The fighters that were in attendance, from just everything, the entire event was electric. So I would say yes, by far, best event of the year. And for me personally, best event I've ever covered.
Very nice. Ben, as someone who was manning the chair for SureDog.com on Saturday evening, your perspective, best fight card of the year?
I think this is the card of the year for sure. Obviously, the in-cage product was absolutely explosive. They set a record for most first-round knockouts, in UFC history. Even like almost every fight was at least very good, and in a year where we've had an unprecedented 4 events now, main events, and with like freakish injury, and just kind of leave us with that feeling of things not being resolved. We had a shocking result in the main event that for the most part was uncontroversial. Like there was a little bit of talking about the timing of the stoppage. I'm one of a small minority that would like to have seen it go a little further, but like I'm not mad about it. Like it wasn't egregious. So yeah, we had a stunning result. have a ton to talk about in the aftermath of it. We learned a lot about, you know, the hierarchy in several divisions. And yeah, it was just unbelievable.
All right. Well, once again, well said, Ben. I want to expand a little bit on something you said there about learning a lot. And that's a common theme for you on the show. It's like, what did you learn, you know, watching any particular fight? And that usually reveals what is the best quality fight content that we're viewing. I feel like I learned something on Saturday night. I learned that Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira are soulmates. They are fight soulmates, much in the way that Manny Pacquiao and Juan Manuel Marquez were. I think this is the MMA equivalent to that. Two gentlemen who, if you put them in the same fighting area and you just let them do what they do, it's going to look largely the same. I mean, this was almost like a facsimile of their second kickboxing fight. This was, you know, Israel is outclassing him on the feet. He gets him in trouble a couple of times, comes very close to finishing it, and then in the final round, the power of Pereira, you know, says otherwise. Gentlemen, what went wrong for Izzy on Saturday night?
I personally just feel like it's a case where, I mean, I'm not going to say it's destiny, but I really think this guy has his number. I don't think anything necessarily went wrong for him. I just think that these are two guys where if they fought 20 times, I think each guy would win 10 times. I really appreciate the fact that because this is in the UFC now, I feel like there's still there's still potential for a story of redemption here. Because if Adesanya is to face this man in a rematch and reclaim his title off of a knockout that's just as vicious as their kickboxing fight, their second one, he could turn the tide. And I think, I wouldn't say people would forget about this, but it would definitely lean more in his favor now, because I think Alex kind of looks like his personal boogeyman right now. But I don't think their story is done at all. I think in a ways it's just getting started. I think we're going to see a lot more from both of them. So I'm excited to see how their storyline continues.
It would be strange if it continued with like Izzy deciding like he's going to retire from MMA, he's going to become, I don't know, a tennis player, and then Pereira decides like, you know what, I'm going to Wimbledon. Like, this really is, he must be his personal boogeyman. Like, he literally jumped into mixed martial arts because he saw the success that Adesanya was having and thinking, oh, I could do that too. And then he went out and did it. Ben, from a technical standpoint, what did you make of some of the decisions that Adesanya was making in there? I personally was perplexed about his desire to step straight back and lean against that fence. What were your assessments?
There were some great and some poor things about it. Adesanya is at City Kickboxing. Eugene Behrman is maybe like the breakthrough coach of the last 2 or 3 years in mixed martial arts. Like, with Adesanya kind of in the lead and then a slew of other great fighters, that has gone from being just another gym in the middle of nowhere, you know, by global MMA standards, to maybe the best camp in the sport over the last couple of years, where like 2 of the top 3 pound for pound fighters in the sport, you know, have made their home there for years. I liked a lot of the game plan. You know, I think taking down Pereira in the middle rounds was absolutely on the blackboard for them as they were coming up with this. It didn't look like a desperation move or, you know, or a reaction to not liking what he was getting on the feet from Pereira. I'm sure that was, okay, somewhere between the middle of the second round, middle of the fourth round, we're going to take this man down and just ride him for a round and give him something to think about. Having said that, some of the in-the-moment split-second tactical decisions by Adesanya were a little perplexing. I'm not an MMA coach, but if I were his coach, first bullet point would be, like, don't let him cut off the cage on you. Don't let him walk you down. Don't let him get you into the warning track. And for a man with, I mean, some of the best footwork in mixed martial arts history, he made it easy to walk himself down against the cage. And I agree that it was to the point where it looked at times Like Adesanya was the guy who was just getting used to fighting it in a essentially round cage rather than a square ring. He was the guy that was actually using his shoulder blades to feel the back of the cage against him, which is normally what you see from the guy that has spent most of his life fighting in a ring with ropes and is just getting used to a cage. It was bizarre. I don't think the fight hinged on it, but it was a weird look. And it does make me wonder whether that would be the same if they were to rematch, which I'm thinking is more and more likely. I do think we have a special guest knocking on the door here. Shall we pull him in for a moment?
Absolutely.
Knock, knock.
Yeah, I knew you'd show up.
Of course, of course.
I knew it. I knew it.
I'm glad I cleaned up the rest of my office.
Oh yeah, I didn't bother because I thought we'd be in the clear. But Jay, happy to see you, man. We are talking UFC 281.
Oh, I've been listening for a little bit. I am on board with what Ben's talking about. And hi guys, hey Roy. It was so strange to see Adesanya playing I seem like I'm inexperienced. I seem like I'm having trouble managing the cage game, because that's not the way we've seen him fight time and time and time again. And yet he was the one who was not able to initiate, aside from a couple 1-2s. He was the one who was struggling to deal with the length and the range of a guy with equal range and length. And that was just so uncharacteristic to see that. And yeah, hi guys.
You know what, Jay? I'm going to push back on a little bit, because
sure.
I think this was misguided hubris. I think Adesanya,
he was pretty overconfident in there.
I think he went in there thinking that he could just do this in any area. You know, it almost seemed like he volunteered to step back on that cage.
Yeah,
and especially
he was better in every area.
Exactly.
That's right. Yeah,
and especially he wanted to get in that clinch a few times, and it was like, okay, I guess he thought like maybe because the clinch rules were different where they previously met, that he would have such a huge advantage there. But it seemed like every time they got in that clinch, he took more damage than his opponent, and then he kept still inviting that clinch and kept going back against the fence. You know, I wonder if, we're pretty certain that this is going to be another fight coming up with these two, that they're going to see each other again. And I think Adesanya deserves that because, one, he lost a fight that he was winning in the last, half of the last round. Two, because he has been a dominant champion, and dominant champions are normally afforded that immediate rematch. And three, the story is so good. The marketing potential is astronomical for them to rematch. When this happens again, and unless something catastrophic injury-wise occurs, this is probably what's next on the docket here. What do you think he does differently? Do you think he relies on a grappling game more? Do you think he, takes the center of the cage? Where do you see the potential for correction here?
Well, who was it on the show this past week that talked about how Israel Adesanya was going to become Division I AA Israel Adesanya and start spamming takedowns and landing them at volume this past week? I don't know. I just needed to give some laurels there, because remember, I believe I specifically pushed back on that, being like, I don't think we've never seen that before. But then again, we'd never seen Michael Chandler throw a front kick in his life before doing that to Tony Ferguson and all of those things. He would be smart to do the things that worked and use which it was odd. His simple boxing combinations appeared to be the most effective. It wasn't the wild stuff. It wasn't the cut off an angle, strike, dip, back. It wasn't any of those things he's traditionally good at to make him the style bender. It was the 1-2, which was shocking to me. I'm gonna pull this one and ask Rory and Ben this, because I'm curious. Do you think, is he trained that hard for this fight? Because it felt a little bit of shades of he just kind of walked in and said, I know what I'm doing. I can do this.
I mean, I'm going to assume that he did. It's a world championship fight, and I don't know. Personally, I just feel like this is his foil. Like, I just feel like this is the guy. This is his
Dennis Hallman.
It's his kryptonite. And like I said, like I'm just ready to see him fight again. I feel like each time we watch these guys fight, we're going to get a similar looking fight, a similar looking product, and I think that the result is a coin flip. I think that at any moment, either guy could win, and they're just very evenly matched on the feet. So I don't really see it being something that needs to be dissected deeper than that. I just feel like these guys are heads and tails, and the probability is half and half for each guy to win. The outcome might be different, but I think we're going to continue to see a similar looking product. I don't think either guy is going to do anything too much different.
I mean, if this is a coin flip, it is a coin flip that keeps landing on heads. I do think, what adjustments, would Adesanya need to make in the rematch to make sure this doesn't happen again? Like strategically in camp, tactically from moment to moment in the fight, as compared to what are the things that Pereira could do better, could do differently to maybe get a win over Adesanya that doesn't involve coming back from a fight he was almost certainly losing. There are still some elements to that fight that make it clear that one of these men is a former kickboxer and one of them is a recent former kickboxer who is still getting used to MMA. I was surprised at what a relatively easy time Pereira had walking down Adesanya because of the issue that Ant brought up and we've talked about. But at the same time, Pereira was very frustrated by Adesanya's hand fighting. He is still getting used to fighting people in open fingered gloves where it, because in kickboxing gloves, it's essentially like boxing. You can parry, but you can't actually grab a man's hand and throw it out of the way. And Adesanya is an incredibly subtle and frustrating man with that. It's part of the thing that up until about 24 hours ago had made him so hard to hit cleanly over the course of his mixed martial arts career, along with his, his reach, his speed, his footwork, his feints, he's a master of hand fighting. That bothered Pereira. And that's something that after a 15-year kickboxing career, he's not going to get used to that in just a couple of camps. That's something that Adesanya will have in his pocket if and when they fight again. But if you've watched all three of their fights, which they're 7 years ago, 5 years ago, and 2 days ago. One thing that's changing is Alex Pereira keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Gosh,
Israel Adesanya has been this lithe, skinny dude basically since the beginning. Physically, he looks about the same as he did when he. Yes,
that swells and gets pulled back every now and then.
It's like a waterbed.
Where Pereira, it's more like the John Jones or Michael Jordan thing, where he started as this skinny guy, and he's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and he's sort of in his 97 Jordan phase at this point, or the last couple of fights, John Jones. It's getting to the point where we're going to I don't know any other way to put this. How long can Pereira keep doing this? He already looks like
observation.
He already looks like one of the biggest light heavyweights in the division. He looked like Johnny fucking Walker out there.
Yeah,
he looked big, really big. And I having known some people who were there all week, it's he's walking around with people like Ryan Spann, and he's basically the same size. Mm-hmm.
Well, there was a
monster.
It was somebody from his camp was talking about on social media that he was 220. He's 220 as a middleweight, and you guys have seen every action movie. You've seen any action movie. You remember the scene in basically every action movie where the main character is beating the crap out of everybody, and then this gigantic guy comes up and has his arms folded, and he hits him in the stomach, and the guy just goes,
yeah,
because he can't hurt him.
Indiana Jones would have shot him.
Yeah.
Just take one look at
that was the situation for a lot of the time. Is this Adesanya strikes were not having any appreciable effect, or Alex Pereira has the best poker face in the history of this sport, because the body shots that Izzy was able to land when he switched stances to southpaw and whipped that body kick right here, and Pereira wouldn't even flinch. That's a big muscles on his muscles, like did all the core work, didn't skip core day one bit to get that protection around it.
Yeah, in the kitchen, man.
Yeah, in this movie, like there's a montage where somebody's like hitting Pereira across the gut with a 2x4, and it's like snapping on.
And it's breaking in half. Exactly. They're dropping the coconuts from the tree, and it's hitting him in the belly. He's got the ice block on his chest, slamming the sledgehammer on it. All of those things probably happened at Underdog BJJ up in Connecticut.
Yeah, they got some savages going on in Connecticut. Connecticut? They got it going on like that in Connecticut. Like Connecticut hasn't been that wild since Aaron Hernandez, but
the mean streets of Danbury, man. Chael Sonnen's got nothing.
Yikes.
Wow, that was inappropriate. So, yeah, man. I mean, we're talking about it, so let's keep it going here. Pereira, big for middleweight. A clearly flawed champion. We see where the holes in his game lie. Out of everyone in the top 5, I mean, he's definitely got some people that can put him out of the title. How long does he hold this belt?
He's getting the Izzy rematch, which really stinks. Like I was going to ask this question back at 247 in Houston when Jones was fighting Dominick Reyes, and I decided not to because I thought it would hurt his feelings, even though it's categorically, historically a true assertion. That's a question. It would be asking Dominick Reyes, how do you feel knowing you will have to beat John Jones twice in a row to be the light heavyweight champion? Alex Pereira has that same situation, that he will have to beat Israel Adesanya twice to really hold the middleweight title and answer those questions. But guys, and maybe I'm just being a hater or something like that. I don't know. Maybe it's the new glasses. I can't quite see very well. Robert Whittaker, I'd favor over him. Jared Cannonier, that's a coin flip fight in my eyes. Marvin Vettori, I think, would run a train on Pereira. Pereira is number 4, but that they're going to update that. And Derek Brunson, I give him a fair chance to do that. And Paulo Costa would be the foil, would be the Costa would be the guy going, ha, 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 your strikes don't work on me. I can't think of a champion where I look at and I go, the top 5 would beat this guy. Basically, all the top 5 would be like, I can't think, and I said this in the Sherdog Slack, I can't think of a more vulnerable middleweight champion than like Evan Tanner, or if you really want to date yourself, Dave Monet, when you're like, oh, this is going to be a weird thing. But I don't know. Do you guys think that the other challengers, the other contenders would have a shot against Pereira? 7-1 Pereira?
Yeah, it's like I even think if Sean Strickland were to rematch him, that's a different fight. If Sean Strickland goes out in their fight and doesn't fight it like an idiot and doesn't stand right in front of the kickboxer and just allow himself to be hit while sticking his chin out, that's a different thing. That's a totally different fight. I think we have the gift of seeing these flaws right now, as opposed to some of the other champions who proved to be vulnerable in their reigns, like Brock Lesnar, who we found out, this guy can't really take a shot like that. Like he has like a mental aversion to being hit. So you see what happens when someone puts hands on him. Like a Ronda Rousey, who was just a reckless striker and just was feeling her own hype. We saw those fall apart after the fact. This, we see the flaws right here. We see how the sausage is made. I don't see him holding this belt too long. But the only thing that I say gives him a bit of an advantage in this is, one, that Izzy rematch that's almost certainly done. This is a guy that he has beaten now 3 times across 2 sports, finished twice. The confidence, the mental edge is surely on his side in this. But then also too, this is still a very new mixed martial artist. He has nothing to do but get better as he, plugs up certain holes in his game as best as he can. And Israel Adesanya not being, the Division I wrestler, he's only going to get so good at taking someone down. He's only going to get so good to disrupt what Pereira can do in such a short span of time. So that at least gives him the potential to win one of these fights if he were to hold on to this belt. So, but outside of that, man, it's a rough road for him.
And he's 35. Like, he's a done deal. Like, there are some fighters where you look at Erin Blanchfield, 23 years old, already has a ton of talent, and you go, okay, I can see how she can then develop. But Poatan, is he going to suddenly figure out a blast double at, turn on the way at 36? Like, I look at this division, I'm going to put our guest on the spot. Rory, think about the 185, the top 10, top whatever, 15. You got Whitaker, Cannonier, Vittori, Brunson, Costa, Strickland, Hermanson, Darren Till for some reason, Muniz. That's like basically our top 10. Is there anybody there that you'd be like, I'm confident that Pereira would just shut this guy out? I mean, besides maybe Strickland, because he did already. Like, I look at these and I go, boy, I see a winnable fight for Andre Muniz.
I see winnable fights, but I also pose a different question, which is, does it actually matter?
It's true.
Like, does it matter at all if he, like, does he need to hold this championship for a really long time? Or has he already done everything that he needs to accomplish? I feel like
retired. What a middle finger to the sport.
Yeah, I mean that's more of a question he needs to ask himself.
Yeah, I just feel like everything is on his side. He's new in the sport. Technically, if you look at anybody else that would be in this position, like, this isn't supposed to happen. Like, you're not supposed to just have this amount of fights and then beat one of the greatest of all time for a world championship in one of the biggest cities in the world. Like, this, it's not supposed to be written like that. So there's nothing that we can take away from him. I feel like anything at this point is literally icing on the cake. If he goes and defends for a long time, congratulations. If he doesn't, look what he's accomplished. Like, it's really crazy how he's able to follow somebody from sport to sport and just do whatever he has his way with them. Like, he literally stole his moment. He's taken everything from Adesanya to the point where, like, now I'm not going to say we're going to question Izzy's dominance, but it does allow for us to question, hey man, like, these guys that are holding world championships, how many guys are there from other disciplines that are, like, very prominent in their sport? How many of them could just, maybe they don't need 10 fights, maybe they don't need 20 fights, maybe they could just come in and beat who we got now? Like, it at least opens up a question. So I feel like regardless, if he goes on a long run, which I do think there are some fights, I do think that there would be, I'd want to see him fight Cannonier. I think that would be amazing. But other than that, I'm not really going to put too much stock into it because he's a relatively new MMA fighter at his big age. But I'd much rather see how his skill set develops at a later age, because by the time he fights again, he could look completely different from today. Like, what if he really does start drilling and do all this crazy stuff and he does become dominant in multiple areas of his game? Or what if he really does get that ring IQ? And, like, I don't know, like, what if he just, all these different factors come together for him at this point and he is Terminator? Like, it's not like it's far-fetched to think it could happen. He just beat one of the world's best. So I don't know, we'll see what happens, but I think he's accomplished everything that he's ever needed to accomplish in MMA already.
I mean, it's a really, really good point you make. Like, his return to the sport after doing Glory, he was a 2-division Glory kickboxing champion, for those that don't know. So, like, he had done everything basically he could do over there in one of, if not the premier kickboxing league in the, in this era. November 20th, 2020 is when he made his LFA debut and planked Thomas Powell less than 2 years ago. So, I mean, you're not far from the finish line. He is playing with house money right now, Pereira.
I mean, this is kind of strange to think about. Leading up to UFC 281, were we considering this man as one of the top combat sport athletes ever?
No.
But we have to have that conversation now.
Yes.
It
It's a
has to
Hollywood
happen.
situation.
It's you can't question it because the proof is there. He just defeated what a lot of people considered. I mean, some people consider him the greatest middleweight ever. So yeah, you have to throw him in there just by proximity. You can't deny it. Anybody that would deny it at this point is just oblivious or just don't want to believe it. But it happened. We watched it happen. So live with it.
Yeah, and we might see it again. So it is what it is. All right, gentlemen. I mean, we could literally do the entire show just on this, but there were other things that happened. So I'm going to put a minute on the clock here, and we're probably going to disrespect this clock. We always disrespect the clock. So I'm going to throw a minute on. Make sure that the sound is on. The sound on? No, I didn't have the sound on. Let me go ahead and turn the sound on.
I have no idea why we disrespect the clock.
I know, right? Because I don't respect. I'm so terrible at the timekeeping on this show. But anyway, here we go. So, minute on the clock. Post-fight press conference. Dana says that the UFC is hell-bent on getting to Africa, and specifically pointing out Nigeria as the most likely destination. Do you think they've missed their moment?
Who wants to go first?
This would be like Scott Coker saying Bellator wants to try to get to Hawaii this year for the first time.
Yeah.
Like, are they hoping Sadiq Yusuf like steps up and wins the title? Like, it's still gonna slap. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, Usman and Adesanya are still one immediate rematch away from winning their titles back. If they can put one or both of those fights in Nigeria, that's obviously, I mean, that's a landmark card for the sport. It's not just a cool thing for the UFC. That is a moment for mixed martial arts. But yeah, it's a little past its freshness date. Would have been great if you had like one of the guys with the Nigerian flag on the screen, like actually as the champ walking in.
Yeah. Your only African champion now isn't from Nigeria,
And he's not fighting.
Yeah, and he may not even be a UFC fighter.
After all this talk that we've just had about Pereira, all I want to see is Ngannou versus Rico Verhoeven in MMA a year from now anyway.
Hey, but you know what? Here's a side question, which we're going to disrespect the clock already.
I'm having fun.
Does this now we've got Usman and Adesanya no longer holding belts? Does this up Francis Ngannou's negotiating power with the UFC? Is he now a hotter commodity because he is now the only African champion and they are desperate to get into this market?
Only if they're actually desperate, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Dana is talking about they want to build a PI there. Of course, Dana, the all-time truth teller, he says that they want to build a PI there. They recognize the wealth of talent and they're trying to get into that market, much like they've been trying to do with China. So, does Francis Ngannou walk into a boardroom in Las Vegas with his chest puffed out extra hard and demand a little bit more money?
Not if you don't want to get sent home. Not if you don't want to get sent home. I look at this almost in the same way I look at WWE when that Performance Center came in and then they started, training their own talent and doing everything like that. Then they became big stars years later, and everybody that was there in the 80s and 90s were just there clapping them on. I think that's what we're getting here. I think they build that PI, Nigeria, in Africa, wherever they want to put it, build their homegrown stars. Those are going to be the guys that headline this place in the future, and Kamaru and Izzy are going to be the ones clapping about it. Yeah, that should have been us back then.
Not a bad thought there, Rory. So we're going to move on here.
Can I point out one thing?
Yeah, what's up?
In May, when I was down visiting family, my cousin and I were, for whatever reason, bored on a rainy night, and we watched the entirety of the African Knockout reality show. It's on Netflix, which is Usman was involved.
Yeah, when they have the one hand covered.
No, it was like tough. Yeah, it was like tough,
Okay.
basically. They had challenges. They ran on the beach. They tried to date ring girls. That was really ugly. I think some of them did, and there was squabbles over that. It was definitely more on the reality show aspect, but they did beat the crap out of each other at the end of every episode, like tough. And then I think it disappeared. But if they were to do the Africa thing, first of all, it's like them going, yeah, let's go to Hawaii now that Max Holloway has lost 3 in a row to the sitting champion. You know, it's guys, what is this short-sightedness? Look, it's almost funny if it weren't so sad. No, it's funny. It's funny.
It's anyway. Consistent. Like they do this all the time. It's
it is
hilarious.
like you could
like they went to Philly after Eddie Alvarez left the promotion. Like come on, bro. Like what are we doing here?
This is the organization that is going to schedule a Boston show while Calvin Kattar is on the mend from surgery. You know, that's this kind of situation we're definitely getting. Because why?
It was definitely the easiest layup humanly possible from a promotional standpoint, and they blew it. So you don't fix that currently. You just gotta wait until you have some new prospects now.
Yeah, and then you run the potential of taking too long again. So
seriously,
probably happen.
You could like the UFC if they really went all about it. They could have had Izzy versus somebody and Usman versus somebody as the main and co-main event. They could have filled up the Lagos National Stadium, like the place they hold World Cup matches, like 60,000 people. They could have done that. But now they're like, you know, the Lagos, like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of
Civic
something.
Center or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Expo Center that
It's like the pearl at the palms of Lagos. Like it's
exactly.
It'd be like
the ballroom.
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be like the Lagos Tachi Palace or something.
Yeah.
They hold this.
I used to love Tachi Palace.
Oh, heck yeah, man.
Tachi
Can
Palace
you
is dope,
imagine like an outdoor arena in Lagos? It'd probably be 125 fucking degrees in that cage.
man.
Like think of how bad Tachi is in the summer.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking like
Tachi
112.
is rough
they were
in the summer. Good Lord.
Yeah.
I did when I did a commentary gig for Tachi's amateur fights. I mean, like I did not leave that hotel until the fights were over. Like I got there like the day before, and I just stayed in that hotel. Like it was like 115 degrees out. Like it was not touching outdoors for that one. But anyway, let's keep things pushing here because the New York State Athletic Commission has done it again. They found a way to impose themselves on the event. The Karolina Kowalkiewicz win was left in question as Bruce Buffer and the judges and the commissioners and stuff, they're going back and forth and they're changing up scorecards and everything. What do you make of that scoring snafu, gentlemen?
I saw a picture, a zoomed in picture. Now, I hope it was legitimate, and I can't remember which person that actually did it and, did like the enhance situation to zoom it in. From what I saw, it was the judges or the score, the score taker. There's an official position for that. I don't know why I can't think of it now. There were 19s, so it was like 30 or it was 19 to 28 or something like that. So I'm hoping it was a procedural issue and not something more ugly because, the UFC doesn't have any ugly situations to deal with right now. But Karolina won, and I believe she won.
Yeah.
Did anybody else?
I think she won that fight. Yeah.
That's it.
Did Silvana win to you guys?
No.
Because I think like probably Drake Riggs scored it for Silvana.
Oh, Drake. I'm going to harass Drake via text message.
He did. I did. I saw MMA decision, so I'm not just spouting off.
Oh, I'm going to harass Drake either way. It's one of my pastimes. So, all right, fellas. Let's keep things pushing here. Frankie Edgar walked away from the sport officially after getting absolutely annihilated by Chris Gutierrez. So, the question I'm going to ask you guys is, how long until he comes back?
To his pizza shop or in the octagon?
In fighting in general.
Well, unless there's fights at the pizza shop, then that's really all I can think about. But I'm really hoping he decides not to step back inside the octagon.
Everybody laughs at me for this, but I kind of believe this retirement. Like, I don't believe many MMA retirements. Like, it's rare that someone like Khabib is like, I'm stepping away. I'm like, I believe you. And like Jay still doesn't believe me. Like I
don't believe it.
Yeah, Jay's gonna die on that hill. Like Jay and I are still gonna be doing a show when Khabib is 51 and he's like weighing like 260 pounds, and Jay's like, no, he's gonna come back.
He's gonna be a super heavyweight. Yeah.
I believe it. Like Edgar's got other stuff. He has enough money. You know, it's funny that Edgar and Eddie Alvarez have been kind of like buddies and sometime training partners for so long because they both got like 15 kids, but like Frankie's like okay, and Eddie's like, nah, I got to keep fighting, dude. I don't like, I can't retire. Yeah, I suspect Edgar stays away.
Jay, is he coming back on the same card as Khabib?
I don't know if he's going to fight MMA. I feel like that he might be at risk because knees and kicks seem to screw him up more than just being punched, except for that one time. I'm going to say that he boxes within 2 years.
With gloves?
Yes, but I don't know if it'll be on his box record. Like if that's
okay.
I don't mean like an unsanctioned fight. I mean like
you mean like
he
a Triller
hasn't
card,
like a fight music show, a Triller show against I don't know.
LaDainian Tomlinson.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's I'm trying to think of somebody that's like 5'8", and then yes, that's exactly LT.
The Spud Whips return to professional athletics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no power slap, fellas, for Frankie.
Oh God. Power slap. Jesus.
You know what? See power slap.
Some of those motherfuckers' arms are as big as Frankie Edgar.
Like based on how his chin's holding up, Frankie could stand behind a guy and then get knocked out by the airflow going past.
Or he'll be like that guy in the extra in Enter the Dragon who was behind the guy that Bruce Lee sidekick and broke his arm. So, all right, fellas. Zhang Weili reclaims the belt. Will we actually see some stability now at the top of the strawweight division?
I hope so. It needs it, and she looked pretty well rounded. So I'll say it depends on our definition of stability. Are we talking 2, 3, 4 defenses? Are we talking Valentina type stuff here? Or I don't know. I guess it depends on what we consider stability. But I think she's got the skill set to rattle off like 3, 4 title defenses in a row. I think that could happen.
Yeah, perhaps I should have been more specific. At least one defense, because
one defense. Yeah, I think she can do that.
Okay.
I think she can do that easy.
And I don't need stability. What I wanted more than anything out of the co-main event was a way forward that let some fresh faces into the title picture. I've been beating the drum forever that the same 5 women have handed that title back and forth for almost 9 years now. Now that Jessica Andrade looks like she might be staying at 125 for a while, they've already made basically every possible permutation they could make of those matchups. Honestly, if Zhang fights Amanda Lemos next, she's going to be favored, but she's not going to be favored as heavily as she was over Esparza. And Lemos will have legitimate routes to victory that, frankly, some of the other former champs didn't have. Lemos has greater one-shot power than any of those women except Zhang herself, you know, with the possible exception of Rose Namajunas' kicks. Zhang is vulnerable to getting hurt by a single huge shot. Lemos is going to be as physically big and strong as Zhang. I'm not saying I favor her to win, but I think she has a better chance of beating Zhang than most of the other women at the top of that division. So it could be a real short title reign. It could be a long title reign. If she beats Lemos, she's probably going to be massively favored over the next couple women in line. But I'm excited for it. Like, the division has a clear way forward now, and it's going to be entering a new era. I like all of that. It's an exciting time for the UFC strawweight division.
Yeah, I love it. It's my favorite division.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing what's coming next for the ladies at 115.
I'm gonna miss the round robin though. I'm gonna really miss that circle.
The round robin is kind of funny.
I tell you guys, I was so banking on Esparza laying, praying her way to a win, and Joanna, who was in the crowd, but walking in the cage and being like, "It's my title," and coming back and getting the title shot, and then we just keep going, and then Joanna fights Weili Zhang.
Boogie woman.
like I wanted that so badly, because what's the alternative? It's Weili Zhang versus Mackenzie Dern.
I love that.
She's like a win away from that now.
I love that. I would love to see that.
I mean, we're probably
He
gonna.
must not like McKenzie, huh?
I like them both.
Mackenzie's gonna wake up and start talking like an American again.
He's gonna wake up with a Valley Girl accent.
Yeah.
Man, so speaking of short reigns as champion, how will history remember Carla Esparza as a UFC title holder?
She's solidified. Not many people can say they've gone out and done this twice. So I think again, I don't really look at MMA in terms of like people needing to do all of this like eccentric stuff or people needing this big longevity to be remembered. I feel like she's accomplished a lot, way more than a lot of other girls have ever dreamed of in the sport. So I think she's good.
Right. Do we agree? Is there anyone who wants to push back on that at all?
There's no pushback. She's one of the. You now have to look at her as one of the all-time overachievers in MMA history. Mm-hmm. She has done more legitimate accomplishment with, I mean, just fewer natural tools than all but a handful of fighters in the modern history of the sport. Like, it should not have been possible for her to win this many fights with that style, being as tiny as she is. It's remarkable.
Get as far as she has with a very obviously limited skill set is pretty remarkable. I see her being viewed, unfortunately, sort of like a Tim Sylvia, like a guy who did what they did and reached the mountaintop, but because they lack the this sort of aesthetic athleticness, they lacked a lot of the excitement. They, have some very serious losses. People just won't look back at them and appreciate what they were able to accomplish. So it takes guys like us, guys who do podcasts on mixed martial arts and have drawn paychecks for writing about it and covering events and, being fully embedded in the sport to appreciate what Carla Esparza has done. But to the average fan, I don't think she's going to be remembered very well at all. And that's very unfortunate.
That's unfortunately, that's kind of where I'm feeling that we all respect and understand and appreciate what she did with what she had to work with. But excuse me, in terms of fan perspective, like there's tiers of women's champions, just to not even reaching the men's champions. Like the lowest tier is Nika Montano and Germaine Durandame. That's the lowest, no respect basically among the populace. And then there's the champions that won a title, but whatever. People really don't. Miesha Tate, whatever, because Ronda wasn't there. Carla's going to be in that category. And I don't know who else, because maybe Juliana Pena is probably in that same category, even though she beat Nunes. And then you got the Holly Holmes with won but didn't defend, and then you got the others. But I think Carla, that she will be a footnote when she deserves to be a blurb or a paragraph.
Yeah. I think that's
on paper, she's more
fair.
Accomplished than Jessica Andrade.
Yeah. And she's beat
Jessica Andrade
twice.
Jessica Andrade looks and moves like we expect the baddest woman on the planet to move and look, and Esparza really doesn't. It's the Tim Sylvia thing that Ant brought up. Sylvia never got respected because he didn't look like what the casual fan or the man on the street thought the baddest man on the planet should look like. This 6'8" dude with knock-kneed and the
love handles and
just the first tattoo he saw on the wall of the shop, the
first one in the guidebook. Yeah, I want that.
Yeah.
I want to see Carla Esparza versus Jessica Andrade now. Just saying. That's one of the pure permutations we haven't seen. I want to see that fight when Andrade beats Murphy and comes back down thinking she has a crack at Weili.
I mean, that would be the ultimate skill versus strength sort of fight. That would be interesting. That's one that my first instinct is oh, I don't know about that. But then the more I think about it, that's intriguing. Yeah.
Anyway.
And it will give one of them a chance to reinsert themselves in the title picture. So not mad at it at all. Maybe we'll get that round robin started again.
No tape study off the dome. I'm taking Esparza in that fight.
If it's a 5-rounder, I got Esparza.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at that at all.
So do I.
Yeah, not mad at that one bit. All right, so we've got Pereira and Weili. They picked up performance bonuses, and Poirier and Chandler fight of the night. So if you were in charge, how would you be giving out performance bonuses? Did the UFC get it right?
They probably got it right, but I always hate to see the extra $50K go to fighters for whom it is not life-changing money. Like, an extra $50K is good for anybody, but Pereira and Zhang were already getting paid. It's the people making 10 and 10 or 12 and 12 on the bottom half of the card that they're the ones that are like, yeah, I bought my mom a house with that. You know, I paid off all my student debt. Like, would have been great to see someone like Mike Trizano, Ryan Spann, Matt Frivola, 3 people that got the best win of their career on, at least in terms of name value and the optics on Saturday's card. Would have been great to see one of those folks pick up the extra $50K. But in terms of sheer merit, yeah, like we had one of the best fights of the year and 2 absolutely dominant performances by title challengers. In a vacuum, those were the right awards.
I'm spoiled because of the UFC London card that happened, well, I don't know, a few months ago, when the UFC decided we're really happy, we had a great time, let's throw bonuses for every finish that happened. This was like an $11.5 million gate. Just getting in the door, the UFC made $11.5 million. Now, obviously, you cut that, you know, probably to 60% because you give 40% to the venue, give or take. So this is like a $6 million takeaway for the UFC. To not throw an extra $50K at Chris Gutierrez, I mean, Dan Hooker, fine, whatever. Renato Moicano, okay, fine. Erin Blanchfield didn't get one, did she? That would be a big thing. Matt Frivola earned one. Now you can't give one to Spann and Trizano because of the missed weight, but Carlos Elberg, like this is one of those situations where we have a fight of the year, we have an event of the year contender. Period. The end. If it's not the best event of the year, we're gonna have to do some really good, long discussions about it. To not pony up and go, we're celebrating. It's red underwear night for everybody here. You can do your thing.
It's Red Valley Tudo short night.
Yes, exactly. It's Dennis Hallman's blue shorts night. Let's party.
Oh, God.
Yes.
It's not that night.
It's never that night.
It's not that night.
But
like,
it was
let us never speak of the banana hammock on this show
Training
again.
mask
God damn
night.
it, Jay.
But it was that night for
Didn't mask a whole lot, did it?
Wasn't it Mike Pyle who stomped him and got the?
No, that was Brian Ebersol.
Brian Ebersol, and he got a post-fight bonus for get those shorts off of TV as soon as possible. I have that in my database.
When you have shit shaved into your chest hair and you're the less embarrassing half of a fight,
you done messed up.
I'm just saying.
Are they still
Jay,
doing that crypto thing? The
Nope.
little crypto? They're finished
They
with
were
that?
restructuring it, and then it's just disappeared.
oh yeah,
They
all
just- now they
kinds
just hand
of
them a roll
crypto
of
companies been
pennies.
restructuring this past week.
Yeah, just
Who do
hand
you
them
guys-
over pennies, it's worth the same.
Who do you guys think would have won that, since that one was fan-based, right?
Same as the award. Same
That's
as
probably the
the
same.
award.
The fan base awards always go to the main card, people who are getting paid more. Like,
Yeah.
what was that UFC 124 when George St. Pierre got the fight of the night against Josh Koscheck?
And you're like,
He's like, really? Oh, okay.
If they made it a fan vote, like people would have written in Conor McGregor, even though he ain't fought in a year. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Jay, you're spot on with this. Like, share the wealth. I mean, when the first thing that comes out of Dana's mouth when he sits down at the dais is, "Oh, we made this boatload of money." Come on, man. Separate $1 million of that and divvy it up with the fighters that got finishes.
even if not $1 million, $300,000. Oh no, you're left with $6.2 million left over from the gate alone, not counting everything else.
Quoting Latrell Sprewell, I got kids to feed.
Seriously, like if it's calculated differently, because sometimes
Sean Kemp has entered the chat.
it might the UFC might have been able to pay bonus money from the beer sales alone at MSG.
Brewed with a fighting spirit.
which were crazy.
They had a choice.
Yeah, give them the Modelo fancy fighting spirit bonus. Easy.
Yeah.
So easy.
Yeah, I mean, this was a layup, Rory. Would you have dished out the post fight bonuses differently?
I'm giving everything to Moicano just off his post fight interview. Give him all the money, give him all the opportunities, give him whatever he wants. He had that place electric. When he was talking, like every single second, everyone around me was standing up. People that don't even watch MMA were going crazy. People were yelling in other languages. Like, that was lit. Like, Moicano had it jumping in there, so give him everything.
The cruel reality is that if Moicano got all that bonus money, and then he walks backstage, the FCC would have just snatched it right from him after that post-fight speech. Yeah, that was funny.
Hey, man, he had a great Ricky Henderson performance, so that's all I have to say.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of which, Moicano, Brian Spann, Erin Blanchfield, which prelim fighter made the biggest statement? Roy, I'm going to start with you, but I think I know exactly what you're going to say.
Do you mean from an entertainment aspect or a wow, you're impressive aspect?
However you want to interpret it, sir.
From a wow, you're impressive aspect, it's Erin. I think she's made herself. I think she stamped herself as a, whoa, this girl can be a champion, like, for sure. Entertainment, it's Moicano. But when I was in there. So when I was, like, actually watching the fights, the pop for Spann in there was kind of wild. So, but yeah, I'm going to go with Moicano.
Okay. Anyone want to disagree with that?
I don't. I think he nailed it because Spann, the greatness is always there. It just needs consistency. He is a guy who can beat anyone in that division on any given night, and Reyes is in free fall. Blanchfield looked incredible, but I had Blanchfield by first round submission. Like that wasn't shocking. For Renato Moicano to beat Brad Riddell, sure, and to beat him by submission, sure, but the fact that he badly outstruck him on the way there, I'm not saying he's going to reach the same heights, but he seems to be turning a corner in the same way Charles Oliveira did just a couple of years ago, where it's like, I'm going to stop fucking around at 145. I'm going to go fight at 155 where I dwarf half these dudes anyway. Oh, by the way, my striking is going to go from a liability to a strength. And as a fighter who runs off confidence, I'm going to just like hit a new level of confidence. Like, he is fighting the best he ever has. He is settled into a weight class where he is more comfortable. You know, like, this card was full of lightweights who wasted too much of their career at featherweight. Dan Hooker, Renato Moicano, Dustin Poirier even. Yeah, like, I think we are going to look back on this as a moment that Renato Moicano's career kind of turned a corner.
And I think it's really special when guys like Moicano, like, after the fight, he actually identified the moment where he felt like he was turning a corner. And I think that when you have the fighters understand themselves to that level, that's when you really see the strong performances coming after. So I really think that us knowing where he turned the corner and him knowing it is two different things. So I'm really excited to see what he does, because he's not a young guy either. So it's like it's really going to be interesting to see if he can make his way back up to the top.
And I want to hear him on that mic again. That was grade A on the mic.
Did Moicano ask for bonus money? He said a lot of things. I thought he said "pay me" or something like that, which may have been why the UFC, because they've been kind of averse to 50K, 50 Gs, or any of that nonsense. They've been kind of like, no, stop that. Although they're now letting them say stake.com. I don't know, is stake.com a stake site?
Someone did say that, though. Someone did.
Skinny bets, and those that's just blowing up. Like Izzy said something about stake, but I'm going to go Ryan Spann. Why? Not because he missed weight. That sucked. That was tough. But you knew it was coming because of how massive this guy is. This is the guy who, what is he, like 6'5"? Like, he is a full 235 in there. He is, to me, I think he was bigger than Johnny Walker when they met back in 2020. And Johnny Walker is who we discuss as, one of the biggest light heavies. So that sucked. And he didn't get bonus money because of that. But he has always struggled against top level guys in his field. Like, even going against like a Robert Drysdale. Because Drysdale, before he took all the steroids, he was somebody who were like, hey, maybe we got something here. But then he hadn't been able to get past Walker, hadn't been able to get past Anthony Smith. And Walker, of course, had the back of the head shots, and Saeed has a claim to be mad at that. I am too. But Dominick Reyes, even though he has the free fall of all free falls, like the level of like a Henan Brahau crashing, this was an elite win for a guy known for like club and sub abilities. He didn't even have to sub. Like he jabbed. The jab alone almost put Reyes out, but then that shot right here, just a short circuiting. So if Ryan Spann can put it together, and now that he is actually training, you know,
that's a hell of a revelation.
That's a Tai Tuivasa-ism right there. And because we'd always joked about this Tai Tuivasa train, and yeah, if he actually starts training and listens to Fortis MMA instructions and stuff, we got a threat at 205. Because that division sucks so much, he's like 2 wins away from a title shot now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really amazing that he was able to do that without training, apparently. So
okay,
do we believe that? Do we believe that?
No.
Show of hands. Do you believe him?
Nope.
No.
I have to, because he always has he never listened to his corner instructions.
Well, I can believe that. You know,
I believe he don't listen.
Yeah, but he was definitely
I don't believe he
training.
does. Yeah.
And maybe he made his training more optimal. Maybe maybe he structured it better or something like that. But there's no way that you get that far without training at all. Like even John Jones was looking at YouTube videos when he started. So he's got to be at least trying. You know what? I'm gonna ask a question on the flip side of that coin. Dominick Reyes fell hard. Am I crazy for thinking that he has the same career arc as Johny Hendricks without actually winning the title?
No. Seems fair.
It's been, in some ways, it's been a worse free fall than Hendricks, because Hendricks had a few moments along the way down where he won a fight or, you know, looked good in a fight. Like Reyes, it is a sheer free fall. Now, granted, 3 of the 4 people he's lost to are champs, but he's looked less competitive every time out, and just he bears no resemblance to the guy that arguably beat John Jones less than 3 years ago. It's a shocking transformation in every way, because by the eyeball test, he's just not the same dude. And with Johny Hendricks, there was a clear reason why.
That was going to be my point.
USADA. That's it. Like, I don't know if, like, I have no reason to believe Dominick Reyes was on any more PEDs than your average UFC fighter, and he doesn't look physically different in the way that Hendricks did, you know, before and after about 2014. But whatever it is, just if he's gonna salvage anything out of his mixed martial arts career, he needs a just serious, like, hard reboot. Mm-hmm. Like, change of team, move up to heavyweight, just something drastic. Because at this point, yeah, there are probably a few 205ers in the UFC that he could beat, but is it even worth the squeeze? Like, is it worth trying to rebuild him by matching up with, like, Harry Hunsucker or something?
Ooh, that's a hard.
I mean, if the UFC's pulling him down to that point, then they've got to be thinking, for how much he makes, how many dudes off the Contender Series could we sign?
That's exactly
literally
right.
12. Mm-hmm. Literally just a dozen, and hope one of them pans out into something.
Yeah.
One of them might not even have to pan out, honestly, for the amount of money he gets versus what they could, what they could find versus what he is. I'd rather gamble on the 10K guys, honestly.
I really, above all, I have not liked the way he has reacted when getting struck. Just the last 3 fights, he has been frozen from not that big deal strikes. Like, in the scheme of things, of course, they probably hurt, and they would put three or four of us down if we got hit by them. But I'm not talking about the spinning back elbow that laid him out. I'm not talking about the bloodthirsty Polish power salvo. I'm talking about just a run-of-the-mill check hook. Like, I'm talking about when he throws a kick and Ryan Spann is able to counter him over the top, and he does that like if you ever played the Nintendo game Punch-Out, and you hit the guy right, and they'd go, or they do the eye thing, and they do the wiggle thing. It wouldn't have the star over the top of the head. You're not that clean of a shot. But that you got him, you can hurt him from not that big of a deal strike. And like a jab put him down. I think if he's going to get back to competition, I think he should go into grappling competitions to get the feel of combat. Maybe do Eddie Bravo's combat jiu-jitsu, so you get palm strikes, but they're not closed fists. So you're only going to get knocked out if you face like an AJ Agazarm.
Like a power slap champion.
Yeah. I'm thinking like something that you can get in there, feel the flow of the fight without getting head trauma, because his absorption of damage is not great. Now, granted, the guys he fought on the way up were not heavy hitters. Who was the heaviest hitter? Volkan Ozdemir, and he edged him, but after Volkan was exhausted, is probably the heaviest handed guy, unless you count like I don't know where I am, Jared Cannonier. So maybe it's the fact that he fought Jan Blachowicz, Yuri Prochazka, and Ryan Spann in rapid succession, that he's not great against strikers that stand in front of him and go, ha, 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 your strikes have no effect on me.
Yeah,
Bringing it back.
It's pretty. I'm really kind of very pessimistic about what his chances are for recovering and all his career. I think he had like an 18-month layoff. You know, I would expect after that amount of time on the shelf, unless you're going into absolute bruising fight camps and you're hard sparring every day, it seems like your chin should hold up better after 18 months on the shelf. That's what's really troubling to me on that he spent the time away that you'd want someone to kind of let themselves heal up, and a jab puts them down like that. That's really scary. So Dominick Reyes might need to have a serious conversation with his loved ones, with his management, and with his team about what his future. Yeah, maybe he can go on the Brendan Schaub comedy tour or something. I don't know. It's really not looking good for him to reclaim any status that he had in defeating John Jones in my eyes that night. What
if it's the weight cut? What if the weight cut that he's been taking, because he's getting older. I mean, he's
32.
32, right? So he's coming out of the end of his prime, and or just that prime window, and he's building more muscle. So maybe he's depleting too much of these simple shots that shouldn't have that much of effect on him. Dude, like, this is a guy who would easily be the same weight as Harry Hunsucker at heavyweight, if we're going to use that thrilling guy as an example. Like, maybe you put him up against like a Chase Sherman type who has knockouts, but he doesn't have one-shot kill power. He's in battle of attrition, and they both desperately need a win.
I mean,
Chase Sherman might put him down, bro.
I'm not having an idea, but you're still talking about heavyweight strikes. So I think it's still, I mean, it's going to be even harder hits, and you got to ask his chin to do double work.
Wouldn't have him rematch over in St. Preux or something.
Or maybe he can take the John Jones route and just say he's going to go up to heavyweight and just take like 3 or 4 years to just amass as much muscle as humanly possible. And in that time frame, maybe he could, get some chin stability there. But it's not just the strikes that are putting him down for me. It's the way he's going out. These are not, he's not just getting knocked out and then getting back up in 5 seconds and he's like, oh yeah, I lost that one. Like, he's getting dropped. And he's staying down for minutes, and this is happening in succession. So like, it's not good. It's not a good look for him. It looks like James Vick or something.
Yeah,
that is an excellent comparison. Parallel. Yeah. Suddenly I can't take a shot anymore.
Yeah,
and
that's what
little
like.
Things are putting me out. That is a really good. Yeah,
so
and then
with Vick, it was attributable at least in part to a ridiculous weight cut.
Yeah.
Reyes was a football player, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, I think so.
I think we're seeing the damage of that more than anything else, because I don't recall him up until his recent, downturn. I don't recall him taking too many shots on his way up, like getting floored and stuff, or getting hit hard a whole lot. I'm looking at this kind of like Kimbo Slice in a way, where by the time Kimbo got to mixed martial arts, his knees were shot from football, and it affected the way he trained and how he could grapple. Mm-hmm. We could be seeing a chin stability version of that from Dominick Reyes. And now at 32 years old, you've had a long athletic career of taking punishment, whatever sport it may be. It's got to catch up with you at some point. So
look no further than Schaub, a guy that we just kind of mentioned in passing.
Absolutely.
There.
Yeah, and the way
now he thinks he's funny. That's the extent of his brain trauma, is that he thinks he's a comedian.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Look at the Amazon reviews of it. That's all I have to say.
Oh, and I'm not disputing that at all. I just just shop. He's a nice dude, but yeah, I'll leave it at that. So fellas, let's keep things pushing here. We have to do something that I enjoy every week. This is the greatest title segment in all of media history. I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons, where we share something that surprised us or ironically did not over the course of the past week. I want to start with our guest, Rory. What is your I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Dillon Danis getting slapped. That's my biggest that's my biggest moment, especially because I was outside standing right next to him as everything happened. So that was one of the highlights of my whole night. By the way, I actually like Dillon Danis. I'm in a minority where I actually enjoy Dillon Danis. I think he's a really nice guy. He's cool. But yeah, that was right on cue.
So that night I saw your tweet, and I'm instantly trying to find, like, all right, there's got to be video of this. There's got to be something. Your video's the one that's circulating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So describe like the scene itself, like what happened, how.
I think he was just walking around with like a group of dudes, but I'm not really sure like who they were. There was some short guy with him, and then like some really tall guys that almost looked like they like worked at the Garden, but maybe not. I don't know, Secret Service, something. But as Nate was coming out with he came out with like a bunch of people, and immediately, like anytime anyone sees him, everyone just pulls their phones out and they point towards him. So like the reason why I knew where Nate was is because I was following the flash from all the phones. So I seen them, and there was like a little guardrail in between them. And the short guy that Dillon was with, he was the one that like initially started it, and that's what Nate like flipped him off and then just slapped him. And then I like backed up a little bit, and then I just seen Dillon like walking around going crazy. He's like, "Oh, I was gonna do something. Or I'm trying to protect somebody." And then I'm pretty sure Nate threw a water bottle at him. Like somebody from over there threw a water bottle at him, and then that's when he came over there again. So it was a big mess.
Like if Nate Diaz comes to your event and not as a fighter, like if he's fighting, say for the Conor McGregor incident at the that press conference, like he tends to be pretty contained. But if he is a guest, if he's a cornerman, if he's anything other than the actual fighter, he's going to find a way to fight. At this event. Why are people still doing this with Nate Diaz? Why? Know what's going to happen.
That man. Stop trying that man. And leave him alone, because you literally know his sole purpose of existence at life right now is to find some reason to slap somebody in their face. like he's not trying to punch anybody. He's not trying to like do anything more than that. He's just looking for a reason that you can give him for him to slap you, and maybe everyone that you're affiliated with. So like, just leave that man alone.
Yeah, just don't do it. And another thing I find very funny about this is that this is continued like carnage from Conor McGregor. This is more ripple effect of Conor, and Dillon Danis has now twice been on the receiving end of Conor McGregor's beefs. I remember seeing in the video, I believe it was Adaitar, Conor's manager, that was there and like trying to be peacemaker in this situation. Like this is a Conor McGregor beef that now is continuing to reverberate out to his friends. I mean, Artem Lobov damn near got jumped in the fighter hotel, found himself boxing Paulie Malignaggi, and now Dillon Danis gets like crowd surfed on by Khabib, and now gets slapped by Nate Diaz. So if you're a friend of Conor McGregor, just wear a helmet or something. I don't know. Like, get a better friend. I have no idea what to tell you.
I will add also that one of the funnier moments that nobody is talking about is that immediately after it happened, like, so after the guy got slapped, right, Dillon was like really pissed. He was like pacing back and forth. He was like trying to find somebody. They were calming him down. And like in the midst of the height of his anger, some guy walked by and was like, "Yo, Dylan, like, really appreciate you, man." Dylan just like posed with him, took some pictures with him. Like he was doing like the whole photo op thing.
Switched it off.
Yeah, just switched it. And then as soon as the guy like went back, he like hulked up again, and he was like walking back and forth. So like he was still like doing photo ops and stuff like that for people in between. It was hilarious. I also have a picture of him like signing a shirt for somebody like right after.
Real.
Yeah.
Well, life is like pro wrestling at this point. Jay, what's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
I was going to laugh about the slap because I was going to come at it from a different angle, that it couldn't happen to a nicer guy, but we'll leave it at that. I was also going to mention the fact that Vitor Belfort, who is, I believe, an anti-vaxxer, contracted COVID and is out of his boxing match with Seymour Ahmed Jr. this weekend. But, you know, that couldn't happen to a dumber guy. So instead, I'm going to talk about an announcement that was made on the UFC broadcast, UFC 281 broadcast, about the interim title fight that's going to happen at UFC 284 in Perth in February, where it's going to be the featherweight interim strap on the line between Josh Emmett and Yair Rodriguez. Why am I not surprised? Because allegedly, I think it's Mark Ramondi who said this earlier today, one of the two parties learned of the fight, that the fight was going to be happening on the broadcast.
Wow.
Like, so it wasn't I've signed, I'm waiting to hear. It was oh crap, I'm fighting on this fight card. I don't know if it was Emmett or Yair Rodriguez, but either Josh Emmett or Yair Rodriguez did not know that this fight was going to happen until they learned it was happening while watching as a fan on TV.
Well, so one of those two guys has a history of being strong-armed by the UFC into fights that he wasn't ready to sign for.
One of them? I mean, Emmett's been kind of screwed around too, so it's a bad situation for everybody. So
and meanwhile, Arnold Allen shooting his TV.
Thank you. Like, this is Arnold Allen. You know, he's at Best Buy today, probably going to get it. Because the one
Black Friday sales early, man.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not surprised that a fighter that's fighting for a title did not have knowledge that he was even in negotiations, let alone I've signed the contract, I'm fighting on this day, until the UFC announces that he's fighting on this day.
How quick do you think he put his beer and pizza down as he was like eating and watching everything? And
I think he probably finished the slice and then like threw it up after.
Wiped the pepperoni oil off his lip and strapped on his boxing gloves and went back to the gym. Wow, it's amazing that the UFC is still pulling these tactics, but they keep working. So I guess why switch it up if you don't have to? Ben, what's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Well, on the undercard of UFC 281, we had the long-delayed matchup between Matt Frevola and Ottman Azaitar. That, of course, is the fight that was postponed for the dumbest reason imaginable, because Azaitar got kicked out of the Fighter Hotel in Abu Dhabi and briefly out of the UFC for that weird episode where one of his entourage was like climbing the fourth floor balcony of the Fighter Hotel to bring him a bag of something. I'm glad to know, like 2.5 years later, what must have been in that bag, and it must have been some Just for Men, because Ottman Azaitar showed up in the cage with this dyed black beard that looked like some iron filings, like from that old little 1950s toy where you would like use a magnet to put the iron filings to put like a beard, you know, and some eyebrows on the dude. Ottman Azaitar, he looked like an Ottman Azaitar imposter or cosplayer, and he fought like an Ottman Azaitar imposter or cosplayer. What the fuck happened to this man? He was one of the hottest prospects in the UFC. Gets booted for like one of his dudes trying to bring him some potatoes through a window, and he comes back, and Matt Frevola, who had more or less like fallen off a cliff since then, beats the shit out of him. Like, what a strange story. Oh, the Azaitar brothers. We barely knew you. And meanwhile, like Abu Azaitar is still like trying to get legitimate losses pulled off his Sherdog record, like on a weekly basis. Oh my God!
Yeah, it was like Carlos Boozer fell like a sack of potatoes in there,
like the Joe Button Velcro beard.
Yeah, it was like,
you just rip it off when you're done.
Like, yo, I saw that hairline. I was like, yo, I know he don't have no hairline like that anymore.
You remember when
Yeah,
Andre
that's a
Arlovsky
beard.
did that? And he had the ultra terrifying dark beard that was just like, what are you
If the fight went any longer, it would have been black ink
We were
running
like
down
like
his
Rudy
face.
Giuliani running down his face. Like this,
Ottman Azaitar looked like a sim. Like his shit was pixelated.
8-bit goatee.
so,
Got the 8-bit goatee.
yeah.
Got like it looked like a Minecraft sword, like coming off his chin.
So,
Oh man.
so
you go.
since this fight happened, more rumor has come and spread about that because it never actually came to light. The latest rumor is that potato was a mistranslation. It was actually a bag of French fries. And
No, then it's just the tense of the verb. Like he needed some past tense potatoes. All right,
like,
yeah.
like because maybe he was cutting weight or they couldn't bring outside food into the hotel. Because the biggest primary issue with the fact that the guy was actually scaling the damn hotel was the transfer of the band, because this was very strict COVID protocols and you only had specific authorized people. So somebody allegedly brought him some like fast food or something.
It's like,
This is
crazy,
Abu
like,
Dhabi.
like,
only
this is-
only Fabricio Verdum is allowed to give COVID to 18 people.
And this is like the ultimate, like they better have tipped the hell out of this Grubhub guy that was climbing the walls or something.
Yeah, imagine like driving for Uber
This is Abu
Eats and,
Dhabi.
like,
The Grubhub guy was a slave.
and then the notes
Like-
say hop the fence, climb, like rappel up the wall, right, with a McDonald's
Bring
bag
a
on
credit
your
card to
shoulder.
shim the window.
And like you're telling me, like the UFC had like an island, like they had an island that the government of United Arab Emirates like sponsored, and they made all this. So you couldn't get the guy some French fries. You just couldn't make a call and say, "Hey, let's get our guy some fries." Okay, that's what
It's
we're
weird.
doing. All right, fellas. Well, I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcon's moment comes courtesy of one Floyd Mayweather Jr., who I had no idea this was going on. I had zero idea this was going on. I was like watching real fights, and I'm a guy who watches some fake fights too sometimes, and quite have quite a good time. And we had a lengthy Jake Paul and Anderson Silva discussion here not that long ago. Floyd Mayweather fought another YouTuber, some guy named DG or Deji or
Deji, I think.
It's
Like the brother of one of those KSW guy, or I think it was.
No, it was like KSI's brother or something?
Yeah, there you go.
I think so.
Not KSW.
And I only know who KSI is because I was at the one of his fights with Logan Paul. And that was only because I was officially working. It was my last actual assignment at Sherdog for a live event. Like what a crappy way to go out. But anyway, he was fighting, and I guess he got a black eye or something in it, but whatever. Floyd Mayweather's still doing this. People are still somehow paying. I think it was on DAZN pay-per-view, and this is still a thing. So I'm not surprised that Floyd Mayweather is still grifting and collecting checks. So
And you know what he did? He did the Ben Duffy's School of Floyd Mayweather tactic. Guy goofing around, Floyd's goofing around. Guy turns it up. Floyd says, "Oh, you want to play this game?" Gets taken to town and taken behind the woodshed eventually.
It's like, why?
Like standing
Why?
TKO, enough. He's already stop. He's already dead or whatever.
Man, they keep doing this. Combat sports fans are the biggest group of marks in the world.
The sucker
That's
born
correct.
every minute, boys.
I mean, we are a terrible lot, aren't we?
Yeah, who's next?
I know, right?
I think there already is one. I think he had one more to the end of the yearbook because
Thanks.
Yes, exactly
Alaia
right.
pressed the button for the bell. So thanks, baby girl.
Good job, baby.
All right, gentlemen. So UFC is headed back to the Apex Center for a main event between Sergey Spivak and Derrick Lewis. Lewis is 3 out of his last 4. He's dropped, but will he once again prove that martial arts doesn't exist against Sergey Spivak? Which you take? Who walks away with the W here?
Here's the thing, man. And shout out to friend of the show, Matt Wells of MMA Junkie, for pointing this out. For a fighter who is as beloved in his hometown and his home state as Derrick Lewis is, he actually kind of fights like shit in Texas. He is undefeated at the Apex. He is extremely defeated in Texas. I mean, those 3 of the last 4 fights he's lost, 2 of them were in Houston, 1 was in Dallas. And Ciryl Gane may just be a better fighter than Derrick Lewis, but the Tuivasa knockout was Lewis standing in the pocket too long, trying to get a highlight reel finish in front of his hometown. he's definitely in decline. He's 37, and his game has always run on having an incredible chin and being deceptively hard to hit in the pocket. He's got that Dustin Poirier thing where when the bullets really start flying and you are toe-to-toe, he just has incredible reflexes and ability to roll with punches, and he's really hard to hit clean in the pocket. That's starting to slip. I mean, he got face planted by that elbow by Tuivasa. That's the kind of firefight he would have won 3 years ago, especially because Tuivasa probably wasn't training at the time. So Lewis's days as a title challenger might be over. His days as a top 5 fighter might be over. But of the guys in the top 10 or 15, Spivak is one of the more favorable style matchups for Lewis. Like, Spivak is almost a 2-to-1 favorite. He's like minus 190. Wow. Lewis like plus 165 right now. But Spivak, he's a developing striker, but he's sure as hell not Ciryl Gane from a technique standpoint, nor is he Tuivasa from a one-shot power standpoint. He's kind of a grindy wrestler. And grindy wrestlers are Derrick Lewis's lunch, you know? Like, they're like his little vegetable on the side. Like Popeyes is his lunch, but, you know, they're like his greens.
Look like the sprig of parsley or something?
Yeah. I mean, if he has anything left, if he is what we hoped Derrick Lewis would still be at age 37, he punts Spivak. Wow. If Spivak is able to get him down, keep him down, or is able to hurt him on the feet, it's Lewis is on his way out. And that would be sad to see because he's the kind of fighter that when it goes, it's going to go bad. He doesn't know any other way to fight. And if the reflexes and chin that have brought him to this point and made him such a fixture in the division are going, it's going to be an ugly run. So I'm hoping. I'm a Houston guy. I like Derrick Lewis. You know, I hope this is at least one last great hurrah, maybe one of his last top 10 wins. Man,
Lewis by finish is plus 200. I think I know the lead of my Prime Picks piece. To quote friend and my Vice Fightland colleague Jack Slack, to defeat bad cards, we must destroy the Apex, for that is the source of their power. Like this fight card, guys.
Dude, I got a stat of the week for you.
I would like to hear it.
UFC Vegas 65 has 5 fighters on it that lost on the Contender Series.
Oh,
and ended up being signed anyway.
Ooh. Like, I mean, I'm on vacation, so this was eyeball test. 1, 2, 3.5 ranked fighters on the billing. Like Lewis, Spivak, and Jennifer Maia, and maybe Marina Moroz because she was in that Playboy shoot. They might rank her up to like 14 because of that thing. Like, this card, guys, holy smokes! This card has Dominick Reyes as next opponent in the featured fight slot. Chase Sherman versus Waldo Cortez Acosta, gentlemen. This is going to be an anti-banger. Like, if there's a banger, this is not that. This is just going to be like you're having drinks with some friends and you're having a house party. And everybody goes home except for 2 or 3 people because you're too drunk and you're waiting for like the Uber to show up. And you have on the bookshelf Rock'em Sock'em Robots. You put it on the table. You're drunk and you play. That is going to be this fight, a drunk version of Rock'em Sock'em Robots. I am so glad I'm going to be covering it live.
Yeah, this like if they were still naming UFC cards, this would be UFC Fight Night contractual obligations.
Depression.
Yeah.
It's
like
UFC Fight Night depression.
Like UFC Fight Night 215 lowered expectations.
It's like UFC Fight Night pay-per-view hangover. Because this is one of those cards where it's like, instead of keeping the momentum going as far as the conversation about an incredible card, you know, everyone has to shift their attention now to this.
What a heartbreaker that we have to talk about Ricky Terzios now instead of how awesome that fight card was. Wow, what do you mean? What's the matter with Pretty Ricky? Man,
Ricky's my guy. I love Ricky.
I know. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So fellas, I guess to conclude, I don't really have anything to add to this segment, but if there's any fight on this card or on one of the 2 One Championships or the tournament for Invicta coming up this week, is there any one fight that you just want to give a brief moment to say this is worth checking out?
I think there is, because we're about to see the definitive end of one of the Pitbull brothers this weekend at Bellator 288, because Patricky Pitbull, the elder, the lightweight, the larger one technically for sometimes, but not always. The lesser, the Matt the lesser for Tia. Yeah, he's fighting Usman Nurmagomedov, who is like the cousin, second cousin once removed, father's, mother's, uncle's, cousin's roommate.
Dagestan has 3.5 million people and 4 last names. They're all fucking cousins.
Been a stud,
one barber.
But he trains
one barber
and
all he got's a 4 guard.
But he trains at AK, so at least he's got the right hookup, and he is going to run a train on Patricky Pitbull, and I'm looking forward to it because I want to see how they're going to handle a Russian champion
in fighting
when because they're trying so hard to get rid of Vadim Nemkov here, and they're going to have a Russian champion in Usman, and they're not going to know what to do with it because, they're like at the point of, do we say the word Russia? Because remember, PFL doesn't. PFL they're an international fighter.
Yeah.
And
it's like that year that the unified team was at the Olympics. Yep.
Yeah. So, that's the Bellator 288 co-main event. It's on Friday.
All right. Any other fights, gentlemen, that you just want to give a brief spotlight to before we wrap things up?
Sure. I mean, Andre Fialho versus Muslim Salikov at UFC Fight Night 215. It's like watching a prequel to a well-known movie. You watch one of the Star Wars prequels, like, I know how this fight ends, but I'm going to watch anyway to see how we get there. Because it's going to end with somebody getting some fucking smelling salts, and I'm here for it. Like, it's 2 of the more electrifying knockout strikers that stylistically could not be much more different than each other. Like Fialho, the boxer with just like rolls and nickels in his hands, versus Muslim Salikov, the all spinning shit all the time. Zabit Magomed Sharipov and Alexander Shlemenko had a baby, Dagestani guy. I love that fight. And the guy who wins is kind of sneaky close to the rankings in one of the hardest divisions in the sport to get ranked in. I'm here for it.
See, I guess I'll just also point out Vadim Nemkov and Corey Anderson is going on too, and Corey Anderson I just really like. I like this guy. I just like Corey Anderson. It just beast in 25-8, still one of the best
25-8, baby,
in MMA history. I don't care what anyone says. So that'll do it for this edition of the Living Death Show. Big thanks to Rory. I finally got to say I work with Rory, so this is cool. Hope to do this again. You're welcome back anytime, my man. And of course, big thanks to Jay for jumping in and providing some well-needed facts and stats for the panel. So, stat of the week, by the way, because I didn't jump in at the segment. I decided not to bring it up and go back. So I'll go back now. The stat of the week is 11, because Anthony Rebel Johnson, rest in peace, recorded 11 knockouts when he was a UFC fighter, which is currently still right now. He hasn't fought for the UFC in quite some time, for the 3rd most in UFC history. Derrick Lewis and Matt Brown at 13 and 12 respectively, of course, have the record. But this is a guy who is tied with Anderson Silva and Thiago Santos for the most knockouts in UFC history, because that was what he did best.
Antonio Rogerio Nogueira is still asleep.
Like that uppercut. The baby just took away the...
All right. Well, between now and then, stay beautiful, stay positive, stay keeping your toddler away from your controls, and stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.
Peace. Thanks, baby. Right at the end of the...